2 points a game is usually a good average, and if you get that per game, and on average, you're going to be there or thereabouts, aren't you? Because there's 46 games, that'll give you 92 points.
Yeah.
So that would say 10 points. But I think that in the last 5 games, we got 12 out of 15. I'd like to see a similar return, 11 or 12 points.
Yeah.
Which I think is achievable in these 5. But 11 to 12. But if we can do that every 5 games, 11 to 12 points, we're going to be right up there.
So welcome back to BCFC Royal Blue. And if you think back to around about a month ago on this channel, we did a video where we took the next 5 fixtures and spoke about each team, spoke about what we thought would be a good points return and where we might be sitting in the league, a little bit about our opponents, and as I say, what a good points return would have been from those 5 games. And that was a really popular video. You guys seem to really like that one. So we're going to do it again for our next 5 fixtures coming up. So Dad, let's get into it. So what are your thoughts on the next Birmingham City 5 fixtures?
Okay, so I'll name the 5 fixtures that we're talking about so you understand which teams we're playing next. So the next 5 fixtures are on the 19th of October, we're playing Lincoln City away. Then we've got a few days later at St.Andrews at Knighthead Park, we've got Bolton Wanderers at home on the 22nd. That Saturday weekend after the Bolton game, we've got Mansfield Town away. That's on the 26th. There's an EFL trophy game, which we're not going to cover in this. This is about league games. So the next league game after the Mansfield game is we're at home to Northampton on the 9th of November. And then we've got Stevenage at home on the 16th of November. There will be FA Cup games peppered in there, but just to emphasise, we're just talking about league games in this particular podcast. Interestingly, the videos that you referred to, the 5 teams that we looked at last time were Wrexham, Rotherham, Huddersfield, Peterborough, and Charlton.
That's the one.
And we got out of 15 points, we've got 12. We lost the last one against Charlton, which is a good return.
Yep.
So on these fixtures, let's. Do you want to go through each team?
Let's do that.
About each team, and then I'll ask you at the end what, like I did last time, what you think could be a good return. Okay.
Yep.
So let's start off then with our next league fixture, which is away to Lincoln City.
This is a really tough game.
Yeah.
Lincoln are a really good team. They're really solid. They kind of remind me of Wrexham, Dad, in the context of they're a real unit. They're really together.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about League One teams, haven't we, Dad? That is such an asset at this level when you've been playing with each other for some time. You've got that real collectiveness, that real gel. They seem to have that real team spirit, and they're currently sitting in 4th. You know, they're having a great season, and they've picked up a few draws in recent form, but they do look a good team, and I really like Lincoln. And they only just missed out on the playoffs last season as well, so it looks like this season they're pushing on. And I tend to do quite a lot of research on teams in and around us, and I do like my football. I do watch a lot of games, and good variety of goals in Lincoln. You know, they score from outside the box. They shoot. They shoot from distance. They can score from corners, from set pieces, on their head, tap-ins. They have a good range of goals in them, and I have no doubt Lincoln away is going to be a difficult game.
I think it will. I think they're going to be up there. You know, playoff contenders. And like you said, they're a very well established team in terms of they know each other now. So I think this will be tough. I mean, they've only lost once so far at the time of recording.
Was that to Barnsley? I think it was to Barnsley.
It was Barnsley. They lost. That surprised me. That was in the second game. They lost 2-1 at home to Barnsley. But, you know, if we go through their fixtures, they started off by beating Burton Albion 3-2 away. Then they lost to Barnsley at home. Then they beat Mansfield 4-1, and they were good. So beat Stevenage 1-0 away. Then a couple of draws against Peterborough and Wigan. Beat Cambridge, as everybody does actually at the moment, 2-0 away. Drew with Blackpool 1-1. And then this weekend they beat Leyton Orient 2-1. That's a good run of results, isn't it? So that's why they're 4th in the league.
Yeah.
I think this will be a tough one as well. And I think that, do you know, when we spoke about the last 5, we thought these are 5 contenders. I think these next few fixtures are also contenders now because the table is starting to settle down.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some teams who would arguably say, you know, in the first game, the first video we did, Dad, with Huddersfield, Peterborough, Rotherham, they're kind of in the mid to lower half of the table, and some of these teams who have been dubbed to be lower are now up in the top half, even not in the playoff position. So these 5 have now turned into pretty difficult games.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I think, you know, from what we've seen so far, every team we've played ups their game.
Yeah.
And they play, and we mentioned this in the post-match video for Charlton, didn't we? That whoever we play, they seem to play their very best against us. And when you look at them in future games, they don't seem to be the same team. So we're going to have to expect it from every team. Yeah. So that's Lincoln, Matt. And then after that, you know, a few days later, we're at home to Bolton Wanderers.
Bolton are a funny team. They're so unpredictable, and I've been tipping them. Me and you, Dad, do a weekly score prediction video. Don't we? I'm predicting them to win, especially at the start of the season. They were losing, they were drawing. I find Bolton a really challenging team to predict week to week, and I think they're sitting in 13th. And to be fair, they've won 3 of their last 4, so they have found form in recent games, which is good. But they really have moments of sloppiness. When I've been watching Bolton, they concede some really cheap goals. I mean, if you look at the Huddersfield game, there was some absolute honkers in there. There was a couple. What game was it? I can't remember. There was another game anyway where they conceded some really soft goals. But they're a dangerous team, and again, Bolton are very dangerous at this level. I have no doubt they won't be in 13th come the end of the season. I think they'll continue to grow, and I think they'll be in and around the playoff position as well. So again, no doubt a difficult game. But did you see their manager at the weekend, Dad? He completely lost his head. I think he got a red card for going
it was Feeney from Shrewsbury, wasn't it?
Yeah, but so in terms of Bolton, they're 13th. I think they will be higher than that, and again, a team to be wary of.
And you are, when you say they're a funny team, you know, they won their first game 2-1 away to Leyton Orient. No, that's not a bad result, because we've been to Leyton Orient. We had the same result against them. Then they drew 0-0 with Wrexham. Then they lost 3 in a row. They lost 2-0 at Charlton. And then at home to Exeter, they lost 2-0. And at home to Huddersfield, 4-0, which is a really, really bad result, wasn't it?
There were some really bad goals in there as well.
Yeah, and then after that, then they went on a 3 in a row they won. So they beat Reading 5-2, Crawley 2-0 away, Northampton 4-2 away. And then their last result was a 2-2 draw against Shrewsbury, which, if I'm honest, I expected them to win at home.
Lots of goals, isn't there?
They do score lots of goals. Yeah. I think I agree with you as well, in as much as that, you know, they're the team, the typical losing the playoff final.
Yeah.
And you have this hangover. And I think now that they've started to pick up a little bit, like you say, they've won 3 of the last 4, drawn the last 1. I think they'll be higher than 13th. I think they will be definitely challenging for the playoffs. They could, with a good run, make or challenge for the automatics as well. But obviously that depends on how they do over, particularly from now till Christmas, I think, would determine that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So that brings on to Mansfield Town. Dad, I've started the last 2. Do you want to kick us off with Mansfield?
Yeah, they're on a great run, Mansfield, aren't they? And again, another team like we talked about with Lincoln City that have been together for a while. They know and comfortable with the style of football that Nigel Clough wants to play, and they're well up there, aren't they? I mean, at the time of recording, they've won their last 5. I'm not going to discredit any of that. 5 wins is 5 wins, but if I tell you the teams that they've beat in those 5, now let's start from the top. Okay, so they won their first game away to Barnsley 2-1, which we saw on TV. Didn't they look pretty good? Didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Then had a 3-3 draw with Burton Albion at home, which was based upon that. Now that's a surprise. But then Burton were drawing a lot of games.
Yeah.
Then their only loss this season has been a 4-1 defeat to Lincoln. Then they drew 1-1 with Stockport, and then this is where their row of wins starts. 2-1 home win against Cambridge, 2-1 home win against Shrewsbury, 2-0 away win against Northampton, 2-0 away win against Crawley. But a good result, their last result, 2-0 at home to Blackpool, who have been doing very well. I think most of those teams you would expect a team like Mansfield to beat, and that's why. And I'm really not disrespecting Mansfield, because a win is a win, 3 points is 3 points.
Of course it is, yeah.
But I think they're going to be playing tougher teams than those over the next, for the rest of the year up until Christmas at least, and then obviously the return fixtures will start, won't they? Yeah. But they've done very well, and I do like their style of football as well. They've got 2 really, and I can't remember their name. Lee Gregory, he's a really experienced player. He's already got a number of goals. I think he's got 6 goals already this season for them as well. Stephen Quinn as well, midfielder. You know, these are very experienced players. So you add a couple of really experienced players into the mix with to support younger teams. Basically, Lee Gregory and Stephen Quinn have been around the block. They know the leagues, and they're going to be really influential players for them as well. Absolutely. So I think that Mansfield have done exceptionally well. Do I think that they will be challenging? I think that they will be top half and definitely, edging towards the playoff.
Might nab 6th, maybe.
Yeah, that's in my opinion, because I think they have got tougher teams to play, and that will be the best benchmark for them. Really.
I think most Mansfield fans would be buzzing with that verdict that they would be possibly nabbing that final playoff spot, and they've kind of been with Lincoln. I mean, Lincoln are a very good team anyway, especially at League One level, but Mansfield and Lincoln have been kind of my 2 surprise packages. I didn't expect them to be doing so well at this point of the season, and Mansfield came up with Wrexham, Crawley and Stockport. And bless Crawley, everyone was expecting Crawley to come down, but Wrexham, Stockport and Mansfield were tipped to do quite well, weren't they? But the fact that Wrexham and Mansfield are holding second and third, is really impressive. And Mansfield specifically here, you can only beat who's in front of you, can't you, Dad? And fair enough, you make a very valid point, but they're still winning them, and they're still having a good old go.
Well, winning breeds confidence as well.
100%.
So and I think that results against Blackpool as well. Blackpool, since Steve Bruce took over, have been really hard to beat. I think that's their first defeat under Steve Bruce, isn't it? Because they won 3 or 4, then they drew the last one, and then
they've done well since Bruce came in.
Yeah, so that's a good result for Mansfield as well. So I think that's a tough game. And don't forget, when we go there in this fixture, we are away as well.
Exactly. And also, Dave, similar to my Lincoln feedback, they score a good variety of goals. They score from distance, they score in the box, they score from set pieces, they score tapping. They're just a real variety in goals. Those are always dangerous teams to play.
And again, don't underestimate what I said about those experienced players. Like the Barry Bannons for Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah.
They just seem to run the team, don't they? I think those two players, Lee Gregory and Stephen Quinn, are very, very experienced players.
Yeah.
I think they'll make a massive difference for them as well.
Definitely.
So that's Mansfield then.
Yep.
So I'll bounce the next one to you then, Matt, which is the fourth of our 5 fixtures that we're looking at, which is Northampton Town at home.
Yeah, so Northampton, I was always tipping them. I think I put sort of Northampton, Shrewsbury, Cambridge, Crawley in that category of that sort of 18 to 24th spot. And Northampton are currently sitting in 20th. I mean, they're, again, a bit of a funny team. They're not having a great season. They have lost their last 3 games, but they beat Huddersfield at their place. And again, I find teams like this really hard to predict, and I find them dangerous because, is it that mentality, Dad, that they beat Huddersfield because, again, they tried to treat it like a cup final? And we've experienced this down the Blues, haven't we, Dad? Every team treats Birmingham City like their cup final. Yep. And even if you look at Charlton, we were at the Valley. Celebrations at full time was like they won the FA Cup, and it is just that nature of can teams step up sometimes to beat the bigger teams, and Northampton, beating Huddersfield at their place, it was a good result. However, I still think they're in for a tough, long season. Northampton, I haven't been overly impressed with what I've seen so far. They do leak goals. They are pretty vulnerable at the back, but again, if anything served its purpose, Dad, from that 1-0 defeat at Charlton, it's to respect everyone in this league, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what you've made. Isn't it? Exceptionally good point for us as Birmingham City is that when we play these, is that they've got nothing to lose, Northampton, and like they've beaten Huddersfield, and Huddersfield are a fancied team in this division. So we've got to be very, very wary about teams like this, And again, you might look at that on paper. Birmingham City at home to Northampton, we cannot be complacent against any team. We have to give every team respect. Let me just run through their results because I've done that for every team as well. Started the season with a 1-0 away defeat at Bristol Rovers. A good result, 2-1 home victory against Exeter. They're no pushover. Then 2 draws, away to Barnsley, 2-2, home to Burton, that was 0-0. Then they lost at home to Wickham, 2-1. Then they beat Huddersfield, 3-1, as you mentioned. Then 3 defeats on the spin. Home to Mansfield, they lost 2-0. At home to Bolton, they lost 4-2. And Wrexham in their last game beat them 4-1. So they've shipped 10 goals in the last 3 games. So they are, appearing to be vulnerable at the back, but the fixtures we've looked at so far against the Lincolns and the Mansfields, etc., and the Boltons, you might think they're going to be challenging games, but I think that we have to treat all these teams exactly the same. And I don't think this will be an easy game either.
No.
But so in this league, we're seeing everybody's beating everybody, aren't they?
It's such a hard league to predict. I think it's twofold, Dad. One, me and you and Blues fans in general aren't familiar with League One, so it's hard sometimes to predict the teams who are more established and at this level. Anyone can beat anyone on their day to some extent, can't they?
Yeah.
And secondly, because we are Blues, I think we get a false performance sometimes because of that cup final element. Teams really do raise their games. There's no way Charlton, as an example, have played like that again in any of their games, and there's been other examples of that as well. It just raises the tempo, it raises the standard, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's not me making excuses. We will have to face and beat every team that we come across.
I agree.
It's just a fact that.
But I think our players, like you said, Matt, will have this mentality. I think that Charlton result was a real wake-up call for us, and I think it must make our players aware that they have to raise their game to match the raising of the game from the other team. So if we are this good against teams, we've got to be even better because we've got to take the same step as them in improving our game.
Yeah.
So the final fixture that we got of our 5, Matt, that we're looking at in this is Stevenage at home. So
again, I know this is probably going to be my key catchphrase from the car podcast. Unpredictable. I find Stevenage really unpredictable. But what is my biggest worry with Stevenage is the ability to play well against the big teams. They've beaten Wrexham, Charlton and Barnsley,
Yeah.
3 teams which
Yeah.
are dubbed to do very well
Yeah.
this season.
Yeah.
And they're currently sitting in 12th. So they're not having a bad season. They're in that mid-table range. Unpredictable team. They will be good, Stevenage. And I picked up on they have a pattern of stepping it up and beating the big, arguably the bigger teams in the league.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick surprise packages this season so far, I'd pick Mansfield first.
Yeah, same.
Then I'd pick Stevenage. Now, I know Stevenage did well last season under Steve Evans before he left and went to Rotherham. In fact, he nearly got them in the playoffs right up to the end of the season. So these again are another good League One team. Let me go through their results as well. Started the season beating Shrewsbury 1-0 at home. Then they lost 2-1 away at Huddersfield. 0-0 draw against Burton, followed by a 1-0 home defeat to Lincoln City. Then they beat Barnsley 3-0 at home. Exeter City, they lost 2-0 away. And then they drew 0-0 at Wigan. And then 1-0 they beat Charlton at home and Wrexham 1-0.
Yep.
And then the last game, Peterborough, they lost 2-1 away. They don't seem to concede that many goals. If you look at so they're obviously defensively they're very good. So
do you reckon they're an out of possession team then? They kind of do that sitting back, maybe absorb and then kind of catch you on the counter kind of style.
Yeah, so I think this is going to, particularly playing against us, we have very, very high possession and we have in every game so far. So I think in this game we will see a lot of the ball. And I think this game will be about how we can break them down.
Yeah.
Because they clearly have got a very, very good defence. They don't concede many goals whatsoever. And if they do win games, they win them narrowly. Yeah. You are right, Matt. We're going to have to be very careful here. To beat the likes of Charlton and Wrexham and Barnsley, this is a good side.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a good side. And they'll come to St.Andrews with the biggest stadium in the league. It's going to be like a cup final for them as well, isn't it? Just like we've spoken about all these teams. So that's a tough run of fixtures for us, I think, these 5.
The 2 standouts for me are Lincoln and Mansfield. That's no disrespect to Bolton, Northampton or Stevenage, but if anything, it's just a massive compliment to Lincoln and Mansfield. They've done so well at the start of this season, especially Lincoln away. I mean, I'd feel slightly more confident if we were at home, with the big crowd. But Lincoln away, it's going to be tough. They're all going to be tough games, but I'm going to have to put you on the spot, Dad. We did this on the last video as well. What would be a good points return for Birmingham City in these 5 games?
My question's about okay. Well, I've always said that in the last game, I said that 2 points a game is usually a good average, and if you get that per game, and on average, you're going to be there or thereabouts, aren't you? Because there's 46 games, that'll give you 92 points. Yeah. So that would say 10 points, but I think that in the last 5 games, we got 12 out of 15. I'd like to see a similar return, 11 or 12 points. Yeah. Which I think is achievable in these 5, but 11 to 12. If we can do that every 5 games, 11 to 12 points, we're going to be right up there, and I'd like to see that. So for me, I'd aim for 11 as a minimum.
Yeah, I think 12 again. I'd be happy. Yeah. I'd be happy with 12. I think we could get 13 here, 4 wins and 1 draw maybe. Again, I'm not jumping on the arrogant bandwagon. I've got a feeling with the international break coming up, with the fact that we did lose to Charlton just before it, they're going to be so revved up now. Chris Davis is going to have them firing, and we're going to go to that Lincoln away game absolutely full of steam. He's going to have them on the training ground, really motivated, really fired up. He's going to know that was a poor performance against Charlton. He's going to want a bounce back reaction, and I think I would love, obviously, of course, every Blues fan would say there's 15 points. I agree with you, Dad. I think 11 would be really positive and keep us on that momentum for promotion. Yeah. I've got a feeling 12, 13 from this.
Okay, all right. And out of the 5 fixtures then, again, same question as on the last similar video, out of the 5, which do you think will be the toughest?
I think Lincoln away. It's for me to toss up between Lincoln and Mansfield. I think they're both going to be really difficult games. I think because we're away at Lincoln, that adds the extra element. We seem to do slightly better away, excluding the last game, because we seem to be slow starting, especially at home, don't we? But I think Lincoln away is where my biggest eye is on for the biggest worry in these 5 games, and then probably Mansfield just behind it. They're the 2 for me, which I would pick as the toughest games. Yeah,
I agree in terms of the quality of the teams that we'll be playing. But I also would be very, not nervous, not at all, but very sceptical about Northampton and Stevenage, and not to,
and Bolton, throw them all in.
well, no, those two, obviously, for the reasons you've explained for Mansfield and Lincoln, they've already proven that they're good quality teams because they're right up there, aren't they? With teams that are slightly lower, like Northampton and Stevenage, them are the games that we need to be really on it because those teams have got literally nothing to lose because they're expected to lose.
From the bookies' point of view and the pundits' point of view, they'll be written off straight away, won't they?
Yeah. I mean, they're all important games, but I think in terms of it's always going to be the teams that are around you, the teams that you want to beat, and so obviously the Lincoln and the Mansfield games are going to be the teams that we would really sort of have to sort of push. But I just think that I don't want to be a team that, or I don't want to obviously our players to have any complacency, and I don't think Chris Davies would do that, and I think he'll learn a lot from what happened at Charlton. And I think that was a big lesson for us. He won't want that repeating again. So for me, to answer the same question I asked you, I would also go for Lincoln away as the toughest of those. But I think, like you also said, Mansfield is really close as well.
They're all tough. I mean, and by the way, with me picking Lincoln and Mansfield, that's no disrespect to Bolton, Northampton and Stevenage. We have to be on it for all of it. But the question was, what am I arguably the most worried about or the most challenging game? And for me, definitely number one is, and thankfully it's the first one, and that's Lincoln away. But any final thoughts?
Well, just one final question again. I'll try and keep the questions consistent with the similar video that we did for the previous 5 fixtures. But based upon what we've done so far this season, and based upon these 5 fixtures now that we're talking about today, do you think Chris Davies will think about changing anything, formation or tactics for these games?
I don't think he will, but I think he'll be a lot more wary of rotation because I think against Charlton, it was clear that we needed something fresh in the centre mid as an example. We needed to have more creativity. We needed to go at them a little bit more and not adapt to their game plan. And to me, that fed into tired legs, a little bit of fatigue there. So I don't think he'll change the formation. I don't think he'll change our setup. I think he might be a bit more smarter with his choices of rotation. Yeah,
and I think he'll need to be for the first 3 games. Lincoln, Bolton, Mansfield, they're all within a week. Mm-hmm. So I think I think that they would need to maybe sort of think about that. But again, it's lesson learned from Charlton, isn't it? I think maybe that we might look back later in the season and actually see the fact that we lost against Charlton
as a blessing almost.
Well, pretty much because we can learn from that. But 5 more fixtures, Matt. I've got nothing more on those. Looking forward to every one of them. Yeah. Hopefully we can get to Lincoln. In all the away games.
I'm sure we'll get to pretty much all of them. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
So, looking forward to another 5 games, and let's see where it takes us.
Absolutely. So, as always, we love the fan engagement on this channel. So, we'd love to hear from you, Blues fans. What are your thoughts on some of the comments that we made? What do you think would be a good points return for Birmingham City out of these 5 games? And maybe you're a supporter of the 5 teams that we've mentioned. We'd love to hear from you as well. What are your thoughts? We do mention on this podcast that Birmingham City brings that cup final element. We are noticing teams raise their games. Do you think we've been fair there? Or would you like to have a little bit of an input on what you think that sort of score or points input would be? Please let us know in the comment section below. And me and my dad do respond to every comment whenever we can get around to those. We do get around to them as quickly as we possibly can. And if you like this video specifically, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up and check us out on our social media channels. We have an X page, we have an Instagram page, and we're also on Spotify now if you want to check us out over there as well. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to press that big red subscribe button so you don't miss any future content all about Birmingham City. And myself and Dad will see you on the next video.